having an understanding of how the military works, how the government works, and being able to maybe even bridge some of those connections that maybe we've had in past experiences, people we may know. There's just a lot of opportunity there.
NAI Global presents How's Biz.
Greetings. Welcome to the NAI Global How's Biz podcast. I'm Gary Marsh. Today's guest is Tony Machabee with NAI Alliance in Reno, Nevada. Tony's a CCIM. He's also a retired United States Air Force colonel. So first of all, Tony, why don't we start by thanking you for your service and welcome you to the show.
Well, thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me. And happy to be here and happy to talk a little commercial real estate and maybe a little bit of Air Force history from my perspective.
Yeah, perfect. Well, really the main reason we're having you is you're the brand new chair of the brand new practice group with NAI Global, which is the Veterans Council, or the military veterans, but we're just using the phrase veterans. That speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So the Veterans Council's a new entity. And I know it's been in the works for a couple of years. I've been associated with NAI Global for some time now, and I know it's been in the works, but it finally came to fruition. So maybe tell us a little bit, Tony, how it did come together, and some of the current and recent background. I don't know the person count, but you've got that seemed to me at least 20 or 30 men and women that are part of the council already, which is awesome. And then you also recently had a gathering when we had our annual convention in Frisco, Texas. So that's kind of a lot, but just go ahead sequentially again by starting how it came together and how you accepted the offer to be its chair.
Sure. Yeah. No, it was something that our office had talked about. I served in the Air Force for 30 years, and in my last capacity as a what they call a emergency planning liaison officer, and I was the senior director for that branch. So I handled Air Force, usually colonels that would respond to any sort of federal disaster, floods, hurricanes, fires, earthquakes, anything like that, where they needed federal assistance, specifically Air Force assistance. And my last region was it covered Nevada, California, Arizona, Hawaii, and Guam. So I had a pretty big area. But some of the things I found were especially dealing with COVID and all that, is there's a nexus between commercial real estate, especially in a lot of cases, industrial commercial real estate, and needs of the Air Force in that case, or the Department of Defense. So a couple deals came up, and we thought, what, I know that I have a unique background being 30 years in the military. You don't necessarily have to have 30 years in the military or you do some of the things that I was involved with to have that relationship with potential clients in the DoD or the Department of Veterans Affairs. But I think that there is a need for those entities, the Department of Defense and Department of Veterans Affairs, for space, industrial or office, retail, in the case of recruiting centers or whatever you might have. And I think that in a lot of cases, they really want to work with veterans. So having that unique background, having an understanding of how the military works, how the government works, and being able to maybe even bridge some of those connections that maybe we've had in past experiences, people we may know, or even if there's a particular development growth in a particular part of the country, and there's maybe some information that we or that broker might know of in that area that could result in another deal in another part of the country. There's just a lot of opportunity there. So it was important to start a group where we could reach out, kind of bring everybody together based upon our military backgrounds and service, that we'd have some commonality there, and we could share some of these leads and potential business growth, as well as recruiting too, to bring other folks in from that are coming off of active duty or the National Guard, reserves, what have you, and bring them into the commercial real estate environment. And I think that there's definitely a lot of value with the group. I think there's a lot of value in potential business, especially the way that this world we're in is going right now. And I think there's going to be more and more of a need for medical offices for Veterans Affairs, office buildings, recruiting centers, and definitely industrial too for any sort of manufacturing that military contractors may be engaged with moving forward here.
Well, that's well said. That there's a lot there to what you said, and I certainly understand the connection between certainly your work as a colonel, where you were orchestrating and managing air response to federal emergencies. Those are basically logistics exercises.
Exactly.
You need facilities to put stuff, for lack of a better, whether it's cases of water or medical supplies, you name it, right?
Yeah.
Fire retardant, out here in the West, wildfires. So that makes complete sense. But now that you mention it, you can see how there's that synergy or nexus, like you say, between the whole ecosystem of commercial real estate and medical office, even retail. I mean, all these kinds of activities drive demand for real estate, bottom line.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
that makes perfect sense. And you made the reference, Tony, on how you personally made the connection into a career in real estate. As you neared retirement, how did you make that transition to, I'm going to talk to somebody, I'm going to look into this? And was there a personal connection?
Yeah.
That's a question, but I also wanted to comment how from a communications perspective, it also makes perfect sense that you and your colleagues would be doing work or potentially doing work with military contracts because you speak the same language.
Right.
I mean, you come from a unique club. So, and I know how not just the military works because I grew up in it, but other entities. I mean, even my world in PR, I connect with journalists because I'm a journalist by training. So it makes perfect sense. So why don't you address, though, again, how you made that personal connection into a career in real estate, and here you are in Act 2 of Tony Machabee.
Yeah, so I'll have to go way back in time. So I always wanted to fly for the military. I wanted to fly for the Air Force. When I graduated from college in 1992, I had a degree in aerospace engineering. Had some flight time, but at the time, the needs of the Air Force was just after Desert Storm, and there was a big drawdown in defense needs. So the flying opportunities within the military really kind of dried up. So I belong to a local family business, office equipment business here in Reno, Nevada, and I started selling copiers. We had a Xerox agency, and I started selling Xerox copiers. This is, like I said, back in the early 90s. And one of the individuals I work with, his name is Brian Arman. He's a fantastic broker with a ton of experience, and Brian and I have remained very close over the years. Is he went into corporate Xerox, ultimately wound up in commercial real estate. I went into the Air Force, but when it was time to come out and start Act 2, as you said, it was kind of a natural progression for me. I've always been interested in commercial real estate. I know that there's some very big deals there to be made, and obviously it can be a lucrative proposition as well. So that's really kind of how I got involved with it. Brian and I teamed up, and we've been working together for about the last 5 years in commercial real estate. He's been doing it a lot longer than I have, but he's been a great mentor for me to bring me along and help me, navigate through this world. I'll give you an example. Again, I'll reference back to my last job as a senior director for FEMA Region 9, where part of my job was to work closely with not only federal assets, military bases like down at Nellis or Creech Air Force Base down in Southern Nevada, for example, but also the local and state governments as well. About the time I started into commercial real estate, I was kind of weighing: do I go into office or do I go into industrial? About that time, COVID had hit, and it was pretty obvious to me which direction I should go into. A good story, I guess I have, is having that connection with the state. They were in desperate need of warehouse space to store all the PPE that was coming through the federally funded programs, and I found them about 125,000 square foot sublease space in a very tight market out in Reno Industrial Center, and we're able to put them into a short term. It was actually close to about a year and a half lease. It at least allowed them to get all that equipment stored and taken care of. So it was a win-win. It was kind of, some days I was kind of trying to figure out which hat I was wearing. Was I wearing a commercial real estate hat? Was I wearing my at the time Nevada Emergency Planning Liaison Officer hat? And I guess I kind of did a little bit of both. But having that connection with the state, I was able to find a solution for them, which made a lot of sense, and was able to kind of tackle an initial need of in this case warehouse distribution space that they desperately needed.
What a perfect transition from one career to the other, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's if you look up transition in the dictionary, they may have your story there. But and then the other thing that I'm really hearing is the classic thing about careers in commercial real estate. It's relationship based, and
Sure.
relationship with Brian, he's one of our good guys and an accomplished industrial broker, and so that also makes sense. Well, one thing that we always like to learn about, and give us your perspective, Tony, on how your career in the military has sort of aided and abetted your transition into commercial real estate. In other words, what are complementary skills that you learned, you performed by rote in the military at some point, and here you are in this industry? I'm sure discipline's one of them, but why don't you address it?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think some of the things that some of the ideals that the military instills in any of us as veterans are very good for this type of environment. Again, self-motivated, detail-oriented, and willing to work with others, and having that communication skill and ability to discuss and work through any challenges that might come up.
Yeah, I can see that. And the other thing that comes to mind is not only the fact that you're ex-military, but the fact that you were a colonel. I would think this accelerates one of the essential ingredients to representing whether it's a landlord, investor, or tenant, is you can probably establish trust a little faster than most of us.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's certainly a credibility factor. Again, it's kind of getting back to that understanding that those of us in the military are willing to put our whatever objective might be, basically service before self, which is one of the Air Force's core values.
And I would think too that I'm a baby boomer. I'm one of many that grew up in the military. We had fathers predominantly, some mothers that served. So that would probably resonate too with your prospecting. If I'm an owner, business decision, investor, if I have a choice between somebody that never served and somebody that served, I probably would go with somebody that served. So you must run into that sometimes.
Yeah. I don't walk around, waving the flag, even though I have it behind me here, but I love my country. I'm proud of the service I did, but that usually it will come up in conversation, but I usually, I don't lead with it. I feel like, I'm kind of a gray haired guy here that looks like I've been in this business a long time. And 5 years I don't think is very long, although I think I've done pretty well and continuing to move things forward, and have worked on some pretty good deals and continue to do that. Thankfully to the NAI organization and the folks that have helped me along the way and are bringing it along. But I think having that background, having that you know, that ability is certainly, it's, you know, just like we're doing right now. It's a good icebreaker at times, but it's also a good conversation piece, and it just helps bridge that relationship development that is critical to this business.
Makes sense. Well, again, we recognize at the top of the podcast that you have your CCIM designation. We
Yes, sir.
value and recognize the designations that our people achieve and earn. What was your motivation for getting the CCIM? And then use that, Tony, as a kind of segue into the nature of the brokerage work that you've been doing, whether it's investment sales or, you know, Reno's a smallish market, so most of you, when I say you, and anyone in the secondary market can do many things, crossing over to different categories. So with that, again, tell us about getting your CCIM designation and what kind of brokerage practice you've developed in the 5 years you've been doing it.
Well, I'll tell you that was a great program. It is a great program. That last test was tough. I've taken a lot of tests in my time, as you can imagine, and that was one of the tougher ones that I've taken. I fortunate that I got through it. You know, there was a local scholarship with the Northern Nevada CCM chapter. They provided some scholarship money for that, and for one of the tests, which was great. It's you know, why I did it. I just, you know, I want to be as smart as I can about that. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to know about this. And I think CCIM was a great pathway of, you know, learning some of the intricacies of this business. But I highly recommend it to anybody, because I think it really does get you up to that level of understanding some of the fundamentals of this business a lot quicker than just, you know, learning it one deal at a time, which is very important too. I'm used to drinking from a fire hose, as they call it, and that's so to me it was natural, but it's a great program for sure, and I recommend it to anybody.
And then that's good. And then the kind of real estate that you've been doing the last 5 years, or, you know, maybe what was one or two of your better transactions in 2023 or first quarter this year?
Well, let's see. Some of the transactions we've done have been great, because it's brought some follow-on clients. Mainly warehouse distribution out in Colorado, Reno Industrial Center. A company called TLS, actually a Turkish logistics company that they've taken some space out in Colorado, Reno Industrial Center. They've expanded that space. They're looking at other markets right now as well, which we're working with some NAI affiliates in those markets. Another great deal that I have is another company called True Up Companies. They do a lot of work with Amazon, and I just got back from Nashville the other day, looking at a building for them to potentially purchase out there, and working with one of the NAI brokers out there as well, Lee Black. So, and he's been great. I think the key is, you know, having the network and being able to work with, you know, reach out across the country to whatever market, and knowing there's going to be an NAI affiliate there that is sharp and has got their act together. They understand the market dynamics, and we're able to build deals, like you said, in a kind of a relatively small market here, but then expand that into other markets. And again, that's kind of the idea with the Veterans Council is to, you know, now on more of a formal basis, kind of get together, talk about deals, talk about activity that's going on, and it's you know, I think it's moving in the right direction for sure, but it's going to take, you know, some time to kind of, you know, build that trust within each other and within the different people that are in there, and we're moving along great right now, especially with having the face-to-face meeting out in Frisco, Texas earlier this year, but having those connections throughout the country, and, you know, potentially the world, to put some deals together and make it happen.
Well, that's the testimonial we always love to hear, how the network works, you know, because it really does. And we've got people, and I mean, you know, I've written about this. We have, NEI Global has more offices in continental United States than any of the national publicly traded firms. And so our market coverage is literally second to none. You can't really say that very often, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did want to go a little deeper into the gathering in Frisco with the veterans, your veterans colleagues, but and this sort of segues into the second to last question, perhaps, but I overlooked asking you earlier. Does the military have any programs that help people that are in service transition into the private sector? That's something
Yeah,
we want our listeners to know about, in part because,
sure.
our offices are actively recruiting military veterans, all across the country.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure do. It's called the Transitions Assistance Program, or TAPS. And I believe if you're on active duty for a certain amount of time, like longer than 30 days, you're required to go through the TAPS program. And I would highly recommend that folks that go through that really kind of pay attention. The program won't necessarily say, hey, here's what you should do. The program is really, hey, what do you want to do when you transition from the military, and how can we help? Here's the resources we can give you. There's a lot of programs out there, post 9/11 GI Bill, that can fund further education. We're actually within NAI. We just had a scholarship that we're getting ready to release to a veteran. I believe he's mainly in property management, but he's going to get the scholarship to go to the ICSC convention. So those are some of the things, and again, I'm kind of jumping here. That's something that we really put together through the Veterans Council. But the TAPS program is basically a federally mandated program that allows folks to get the resources to help them make that transition into whatever career they want to go into.
Excellent. Really happy to hear that is in place. Any of your colleagues, without slighting others, that we wouldn't mention that you want to give a shout out to, that you've been joined with, that are pretty enthusiastic to help grow the veterans group?
Yeah, there's quite a few of them. Working with some of the folks down in the Phoenix office, Jeffrey Garza Walker, and then Denny
Hiffman in Chicago.
Pittman. Thank you. Yeah, he's been great. So they were all at the conference in Frisco, and they were throwing out some ideas. And I mean, look, as the council chairman, I feel like I should guide the group, but I don't have all the answers. And there's guys out there that have a whole lot more experience than I do. So I'm just trying to put together the right people to build this program, to make it an effective program where we can really, like I said, build more business, develop more business, and recruit the right people into this industry, into the NAI affiliates, as it were.
Well, good. You're off to a good start, and to use the baseball metaphor, you're in the early innings for sure. So
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
why don't we do some follow up with you in a year or so, and kind of see where the group has gone. In
Yep.
closing, Tony, what I'd really like you to address is, if you met a man or woman in active service, what would you tell her or him about a potential career in commercial real estate?
I think that the possibilities are limitless, and this is this where it might be a little bit of a challenge. Especially in the brokerage world, you can make as much money as you are willing to put the effort into, and you can make as much, as many deals as you're willing to put together. And it's really kind of up to the individual. And like I said earlier, if you're disciplined, you're self-motivated, detail oriented, I think those things will happen. But you have to kind of break out of that mentality too of, hey, this is I'm on active duty, I'm getting paid every day, no matter what, and I'm showing up and doing my job. It's a tough transition, especially if you're going to 100% commission 1099 type employee, where, hey, you might not get a check for as regularly as you were in the military. But make sure that you're setting aside some money for especially that startup period. If you're fortunate enough to stay in long enough where you've come off active duty and you're collecting some sort of retirement or disability or something like that, then that's certainly helpful. But I think if for the right person that that's good with people, and they can accomplish the goals they set out to do. It's a great opportunity, and really the sky's the limit as far as where this career might take you.
Yeah, right. And also I would think that, there's a leap of faith, but on that, the notion of faith, have trust and faith in yourself and the system, just like in the military, you have trust and faith in your teammates to execute the mission, or else failure is not an option, right?
Yeah, yeah. And nobody wants to see anyone fail. We're not in this business. It is a team effort, and just in our office, we have an industrial team, which is part of the larger team of NAI Alliance, and now we have NAI Global, and within that we have the Veterans Council. So one of the cornerstones of military services is teamwork. It's never really about any one individual. It's about the team and what they can do. So again, that's probably another attribute that lends itself well to military veterans, is that approach they have, and that teamwork type of mentality.
Well, that's a great note to end on. We could talk for much longer, I can tell, but I'd like to adjourn our meeting. So Tony Machabee with NAI Alliance in Reno, it's been delightful speaking with you. And again, thank you for your service to our country.
Oh, thanks a lot, Gary. Appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to the follow-up here in a year or so.
Excellent.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to How's Biz, presented by NAI Global. Review, share, subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next episode.